Atlanta thought it was just another wild Friday night. But what went down inside one of the city's hottest nightclubs has fans saying this might be the craziest love and hip-hop scandal ever. The bass was shaking the walls, the drinks were flowing, and the crowd was lit till the energy shifted. Out of nowhere, Kirk Frost and young Jock stormed across the floor like men on a mission, eyes locked on Lil Scrappy. What started as tense whispers and icy stares exploded into a confrontation so shocking, the entire club froze. Phones flew up, security scrambled, and within seconds the internet was on fire. Rumors of betrayal, receipts, and long-boiling grudges turned the nightclub into a battlefield, leaving everyone asking the same thing. What could possibly push Kirk and Jock to go after Scrappy so hardened? Is this just the beginning of something much darker? Atlanta has always been the city where nights don't end, they transform. Where the club isn't just a club. It's a stage for stories, for power plays, for reputations that can rise or crumble in a single moment. And on this night in one of the city's hottest nightclubs, that stage was set for something nobody in the building could have predicted. The kind of story that spreads faster than the music, faster than the drinks, faster than the lights flashing across the packed room. The line outside wrapped around the block. Cars doubled up at the curb, headlights bouncing off the glittering dresses and icy chains of people waiting to get in. This wasn't just a place to party. It was the place to be seen. Inside, the walls shook with bass, bodies moved shoulder to shoulder, and the air was thick with perfume, cologne, and heat. It was loud, chaotic, intoxicating, exactly what people came here for. At the bar, laughter rang out as groups clinked glasses, shouting over the music. On the dance floor, strangers became friends as beats swallowed them whole. Every strobe light revealed another flash of faces lost in the moment. Celebrities, hustlers, influencers, and fans, all blending into one crowd. The DJ knew exactly what he was doing, dropping track after track, raising the temperature with every beat. But while the majority of the club lived for the music, for the flashing lights, for the escape, not everyone was there for fun. Up in one of the velvet-lined VIP booths, Kirk Frost sat with a glass in his hand. His fit screamed success. Designer jacket, heavy chains, everything polished to perfection. Around him, his entourage vibed, laughing, snapping pictures, posing for the crowd that always craned its neck toward VIP. But anyone watching closely could see it. Kirk's smile didn't sit right. His jaw stayed too tight. His eyes didn't move the way they usually did when he was out enjoying himself. Instead, they were locked across the club, focused, sharp, waiting. Beside him sat young Jock, his energy a sharp contrast to the vibe his people tried to project. Known for his humor, his ability to keep any room light, Jock looked different tonight. He laughed when others laughed, nodded when someone cracked a joke, but his eyes weren't in it. His laugh was hollow, the kind that came too late, too forced. His mind was somewhere else, tethered to the same focus Kirk had across the room. And that focus? It was a man who, at that moment, looked like he owned the night. Lil Scrappy. Scrappy didn't just sit in VIP, he commanded it. Every time he threw his head back in laughter, the sound cut through the music. Every time he raised his glass, people turned to toast with him. He wasn't just in the club, he was the club. His energy pulled people in, the same way it always had. If Kirk and Jock's booth was a picture of Force.com, Scrappy's was pure chaos in the best way. Loud. Unbothered, magnetic dot, he leaned into his people. Cracked jokes, slapped hands, nodded at fans who drifted over to pay respects. He knew how to work the room without even trying. That's why he'd always been a favorite, because when Scrappy stepped into a space, he owned it without needing to announce himself. But tonight, ownership had consequences. The more Scrappy laughed, the more Kirk's jaw tightened. The more he toasted, the more Jock's fingers drummed impatiently on the table. Their energy was undeniable, a shadow that grew heavier with every minute. A waitress approached with another round of bottles for Kirk and Jock's booth, smiling as she set the drinks down. But even she felt it. Her eyes flicked between Kirk's stony silence and Jock's clenched fists before she quickly disappeared back into the blur of the crowd. From Scrappy's side, though, the tension wasn't even acknowledged. If he noticed Kirk and Jock's eyes burning holes across the club, he didn't show it. He was too busy living, too busy laughing, too busy letting his crew hype him up. If he felt the storm building, he hid it flawlessly behind his usual grin. But Kirk and Jock weren't hiding. Their conversations grew quieter, shorter. Jock leaned in toward Kirk, muttering something under his breath. Kirk nodded once, sharp eyes never leaving Scrappy's movements. The energy in their booth shifted so much that even their own people picked up on it. The laughter softened. The photos slowed. Everyone knew something was brewing, but nobody dared to ask Dot across the dance floor. Scrappy stepped down from his booth, moving into the crowd. Fans clapped him on the back. Women pulled him into selfies, and everywhere he went, the energy followed. He was the gravitational pull of the room, and everyone else was just orbiting. But orbiting power comes with risk. And Kirk and Jock weren't just watching anymore. They were deciding. Jock leaned closer to Kirk, his voice sharp even over the pounding bass. "You seeing what I'm seeing?" Kirk didn't answer right away. His eyes tracked Scrappy as he raised his glass, nodding to a familiar face in the crowd. Finally, Kirk's lips curled into something that wasn't a smile. "Yeah, I see it." That was it. The confirmation. The moment when tension turned into action. From that second on, the club wasn't just a party anymore. It was a pressure cooker, seconds from blowing, and the crowd. They didn't even know yet. The DJ spun into another track. The dancers jumped higher, and the drinks kept pouring. But underneath the strobe lights and heavy bass, something darker was crawling its way into the spotlight. Because when Kirk and Jock finally stood up from their booth, their movements deliberate, their eyes locked, their target clear, the entire energy of the room shifted. People didn't know what was about to happen, but they felt it. The whispers started, the phones came out, and the path they carved through the crowd was like a warning siren nobody wanted to hear. And where was Scrappy? Right in the center of it all. Unaware that the storm he didn't invite was walking straight for him, the night wasn't about to stay a party. It was about to turn into a war zone. The moment Kirk Frost and young Jock broke away from their VIP booth, the entire energy of the club shifted. They weren't moving like partygoers drifting toward the bar. They weren't walking like men just trying to say a quick word. Their steps were sharp, cutting through the crowd like blades through smoke. Their eyes locked on one man, Lil Scrappy. Onlookers felt it before they saw it. Conversations slowed. Heads turned. The bass was still pounding, but the music suddenly felt like background noise to the tension stretching tight across the room. Scrappy's crew noticed first. From their booth, they watched Kirk and Jock weave closer, shoulders squared, jaws tight. A couple of Scrappy's guys shifted uneasily, whispering quick words to each other. But Scrappy himself? He was still in the middle of the dance floor, soaking in the energy, raising his glass to a group of fans, shouting his name. He was unbothered, or at least pretending to be Dot. By the time he turned, they were already there. Kirk stopped just a few feet away, hands tucked in his pockets, expression carved from stone. Jock stepped in closer, his posture calm but his eyes sharp with unspoken fire. The people closest to them froze in place, forming a loose circle without even realizing it. Phones lifted into the air. Every camera lens pointed at the three men now locked in a silent standoff. Scrappy lowered his drink slowly, its usual grin dimming into something harder, more cautious. His shoulders straightened, his energy shifting from carefree to coiled. His voice was steady when he finally spoke, but his eyes searched their faces. "What's going on, fellas?" He tried to make it sound casual, but there was weight beneath it. His crew stirred behind him, some rising to their feet, others inching closer. Nobody moved to interfere, not yet, but the readiness in their stance was impossible to ignore. Kirk didn't answer right away. His gaze cut through Scrappy, cold, heavy. Finally, his voice came low and deliberate, but sharp enough to slice through the music. "You been running your mouth?" The words hung in the air. vibrating with tension. Jock's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. Scrappy raised his eyebrows, feigning confusion. But the glass in his hand trembled ever so slightly. "I don't know what you mean," he shot back, his tone firm but not quite unshaken. "You're gonna have to be more specific." The crowd leaned in, eager for every word. Joc stepped forward now, closing the last bit of space between them. His voice just as cold as Kirk's, but sharper. More direct. "You know exactly what this is about," Jock said, pointing a finger toward Scrappy's chest. "Spreading lies. Talking slick. Saying one thing to us, another thing to everybody else. You think you can keep playing both sides without facing the consequences?" Scrappy let out a short laugh. Too short, too forced. His grin flickered back onto his face, but it didn't sit right. "If I got something to say, I'll say it," he replied, louder now. His words edged with defiance. "But don't come at me with weak accusations unless you got something solid." The crowd gasped. Even in a nightclub packed with noise, that line cut clean. That's when Kirk moved. Slow, deliberate. He pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumbs swiping across the screen with a precision that made the crowd lean in further. He didn't have to say much. Just holding up the glow of that phone, angled toward Scrappy, said everything. "We've got more than words," Kirk said, his tone razor sharp. "We've got receipts." Gasps rippled across the room. Scrappy squinted against the glare of the screen, trying to catch the details, but it didn't matter. The weight of Kirk's move hit him harder than the actual proof. Scrappy's jaw tightened. His voice was steady, but the edge in it betrayed him. "So what now? You gonna show me some out-of-context messages? That's your proof," he scoffed, waving his free hand dismissively. Man, miss me with that nonsense. But the tremor in his tone gave him away. His bravado was cracking. Not enough for the crowd to see, but enough for Kirk and Jock to smell blood. Jock stepped even closer, now standing shoulder to shoulder with Kirk. His voice low but sharp. "This isn't out of context," he snapped. "You've been talking out both sides of your mouth, saying one thing to us, another to everybody else. And tonight, we're not letting it slide." Scrappy's shoulders squared. He planted his feet, his free hand curling into a fist at his side. His voice rose above the music, loud enough for half the club to hear. "You think you can come in here and press me?" he shouted. "Who do you think you are?" The circle around them grew tighter, the air heavy with anticipation. Even the DJ seemed to sense it, the beat dropping into a darker track. Amplifying the raw tension, Scrappy's crew shifted into formation behind him. A silent wall of support. Kirk and Jock's people hung back but close, eyes darting, muscles tense. The entire club felt suspended, seconds away from an eruption. Kirk leaned in now, his voice measured but deadly serious. "This is bigger than you think," he murmured. "You keep running your mouth, and it's not just you that's going to get hurt. Think about that before you push your luck." The words landed like a punch. Scrappy inhaled sharply, his chest rising and falling as his fury boiled over. "Say it now," he demanded, his voice low, trembling with anger. "Say what you came here to say, because I'm done playing games." Behind him, his crew closed in tighter. A semicircle of quiet power. Joc smirked, shaking his head. "You've already said too much." And then Kirk stepped forward so close Scrappy could feel his breath. His voice dropped, nearly lost beneath the music, but sharp enough to cut through bone. "Keep talking, Scrappy," he whispered. "See what happens next." The crowd barely breathed. Scrappy didn't flinch. His fists clenched. His eyes burned. "You don't scare me," he spat. "You never did." The tension snapped like a live wire. Jock's fists curled. Kirk's eyes narrowed. Scrappy's crew surged forward, ready to throw down, and then a hand. A heavy, firm hand landed on Kirk's shoulder. "That's enough." The voice boomed over the music. Security, big. Broad, no nonsense. His presence alone shifted the energy. His eyes darting between the three men, like a referee who'd seen this play out. "Too many times before. Take it outside," the guard barked. "Or take a seat." But this isn't happening here. For a split second, it looked like Kirk might push back. The air was still thick with everything unsaid. Jock rolled his shoulders, ready for whatever. Scrappy's chest heaved, fire in his eyes, fists itching to swing. But then Kirk slid his phone back into his pocket, never breaking eye contact. "We'll settle this another time," he said, his voice low but carrying enough weight to make the crowd shiver. JOC gave Scrappy one last stare. No more words, no more threats, just promises. They turned, disappearing back toward their booth, the crowd parting around them. Scrappy stood his ground, his breathing heavy, his crew buzzing at his back. One of them leaned in. "You good?" Scrappy lifted his glass, taking a slow sip. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. "I'm good," he said. Then, quieter, almost to himself. "They're all talk. Always have been." But in the pit of his stomach, he knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. If the nightclub was the spark, the internet was the gasoline. By the time Kirk Frost and young Jock returned to their booth and Lil Scrappy sat back down with his crew, the fight wasn't just contained to that dark, bass-shaking room anymore. It was already exploding across phones, timelines, and comment sections. It started with one shaky video. Somebody near the back of the dance floor had their phone raised. The second Kirk and Jock marched toward Scrappy. The footage wasn't clear, the lights flashing, the music pounding, people shouting over the beat. But that didn't matter. The silhouette of three men squaring off in the middle of a packed club was all anyone needed. That clip, barely 20 seconds long, hit social media before the confrontation was even fully over. Within minutes, comments were already on fire. "Yo, is that Kirk and Jock pressing Scrappy? ATL messy as hell." Scrappy stood 10 toes down. Didn't flinch once. Kirk trying to fight in a cardigan. "Bro, sit down." The clip spread like wildfire. People at the club reposted from different angles. Some videos caught the icy stares, some caught Jock pointing at Scrappy's chest. Others caught Kirk holding up his phone with the alleged receipts glowing against Scrappy's face. Each angle added fuel to the fire, and each caption exaggerated the moment even more. The hashtags trended instantly. Hashtag ClubFightITL, hashtag Scrappy vs Kirk, hashtag YoungJOC Wild, and hashtag receipts in the club. Even people who weren't there started spinning stories, embellishing what they thought happened. Word is, Scrappy was talking reckless about Rashida. That's why Kirk pressed him. Nah, Jock mad, 'cause Scrappy got booked for a show Jock was supposed to host. Money problems always the root. Y'all blind? Scrappy was about to swing. Security saved Kirk's whole life. The truth didn't matter anymore. The fight had already taken on a life of its own. Inside the club, Scrappy scrolled through his phone, the glow lighting up his face as he watched clip after clip of himself being posted, dissected, turned into memes. His crew hyped him up, shoving their screens in his face. They sang, "You, the king of the night, bro." Look, Scrappy ain't fold for nobody. Scrappy smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. He tossed back the rest of his drink, his jaw tight. "Yeah, 8, he muttered. But his gaze flicked across the room toward Kirk and Jock's booth. "We know they ain't done." On the other side, Kirk's phone buzzed nonstop. Notification after notification, his name plastered all over trending hashtags. He scrolled, jaw clenched tighter with every comment. "They talking like we the bad guys," he muttered under his breath. Jock leaned over, peering at the screen. "Let 'em talk. Noise is noise." Jock shrugged, but then he added, his tone darker, "Unless we set the record straight." Kirk nodded slowly. "Yeah, might be time." Meanwhile, outside the club, the parking lot buzzed with just as much energy as the dance floor inside. People who'd been there couldn't wait to go live, spilling their versions of what happened. One woman with her camera pressed close to her face whispered into her live stream, "I swear on everything, Kirk was this close to swinging." Jock too. Security saved the whole thing. If they would have thrown a punch, this place would have exploded. Elsewhere, a guy lit a cigarette and laughed into his phone camera. Man, Scrappy stood them down like a champ. They ain't want smoke. They fronted for the cameras but didn't do nothing. Every storyteller added their own twist, their own flavor, turning the night into a dozen different sagas all at once. By the next morning, blog sites had already run with headlines. Chaos in Atlanta, Nightclub, Kirk Frost, and Young Jock confront Lil Scrappy. Love and hip-hop stars nearly come to blows in packed club. Receipts in the club. Kirk Frost seen holding phone during heated confrontation. And the blogs weren't alone. Memes flooded Twitter and Instagram. Screenshots of Kirk holding up his phone were photoshopped with captions like, "When you finally find the receipts but Wi-Fi down," and Kirk pulling up screenshots like it's a PowerPoint. Presentation, Jock pointing at Scrappy's chest, became a meme of its own. When your homie says he doesn't remember that one time you spotted him $20, but while fans laughed, the undertones were serious. The speculation about why Kirk and Jock confronted Scrappy only grew louder. Some insisted it was about women. Others swore it was business. A few even dragged Rashida's name into it, claiming Scrappy had crossed a line with something he said. One viral tweet claimed, "Word on the street. Scrappy been talking crazy about Kirk behind his back. Jock ain't gonna let that slide. ATL about to explode FR." Another post read, "Kirk and Jock got real receipts. If they drop M, Scrappy done." Suddenly, it wasn't just a fight. It was a mystery, one the entire internet wanted answers to. Scrappy's fans swarmed his page, filling his comments with crowns and fire emojis. "You a real one for standing tall. They can't touch you, Scrap." Meanwhile, Kirk and Jock's mentions were on fire too. "Y'all pressed him to on one. Weak. Drop the receipts or shut up." Jock looking mad over nothing, insecure much. And through it all, the cast of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta stayed silent. Not one of them posted. Not one of them commented. At least not yet. That silence only made the noise louder. By midnight, the hashtags had jumped from ATL Twitter to Shade Room reposts to TikTok edits with dramatic music under the shaky club footage. The narrative was no longer in Kirk, Jock, or Scrappy's control. The fans had taken it, chewed it up, and turned it into a viral storm, and the whispers were only growing. Because somewhere in all those comments, somewhere between the jokes and the memes and the speculation, the same question kept surfacing over and over again. What receipts does Kirk really have? The internet wasn't just entertained anymore. They were waiting, hungry, demanding the next move. And Kirk and Jock, they knew it, sitting in their booth, their phones glowing in the dark, their drinks untouched. They could feel it pressing in on them. Kirk slipped his phone back into his pocket, his jaw set. "We're not letting him control this," he said. Jock leaned back, nodding, eyes cold. "Then let's give M something they can't ignore. When the internet smells blood, doesn't stop until it draws every drop." And after the nightclub footage of Kirk Frost, Young Jock, and Lil Scrappy went viral, the story was no longer just about a tense standoff under flashing lights. It was about secrets, allegiances, betrayals, the kind of behind-the-scenes dirt that Love and Hip Hop Atlanta fans feast on. At first, it was just speculation, wild guesses flying across timelines. But within hours, insider sources began to emerge. Anonymous accounts with names like @LHHATL and @RealityCheckPlug started dropping threads that spread like wildfire. The first leak hit Twitter in the form of a cryptic post. This fight wasn't random. Jock been sitting on info about Scrappy for months. Kirk finally saw the receipts and ATL had to pay the price. #ClubFightTTL #receipts incoming screenshots followed. Blurry, half-redacted texts allegedly showing Scrappy trash-talking Kirk in private group chats. Claims that Scrappy had been joking about Kirk's marriage, dragging Rashida's name into conversations, and even hinting that Kirk was out of touch with the current ATL scene. One alleged message read, "Kirk still think he the boss, but he washed. Nobody checkin' for him like that no more. Rashida, the only reason folks even remember his name." Fans went wild. The idea that Scrappy might have been disrespecting Rashida, a woman who had built her reputation as one of the most resilient names in love, and hip-hop instantly flipped the narrative. Comments poured in. If Scrap said that about Rashida, no wonder Kirk snapped. That's his wife, y'all. Messy AFY, Scrappy gotta drag Rashida when she ain't in it. If that's real, Scrap better hope Kirk don't drop the full receipts. But that wasn't the only leak. Hours later, another account posted what looked like snippets of booking contracts. According to the post, Jock and Scrappy had clashed over money too. A promoter had allegedly chosen Scrappy over Jock for a high-profile event. And word spread that Scrappy had bragged about undercutting Jock's price to lock the gig. Scrappy been stepping on Jock's business. Jock found out he undercut him by $1,000 for a show in Miami. That's why Jock's energy been off for months. #YoungJockMod that leaked through gasoline on the fire. Fans now debated whether the fight was about personal disrespect or professional, betrayal or both. Oh, this about money and women. ATL too small for this mess. Jock been smiling through it, but Scrap played him dirty behind the scenes. LHHATL storyline writing itself at this point. By midday, LHHATL had their hooks in. The Shade Room posted a carousel of tweets, side by side with screenshots of Kirk holding up his phone in the club. Hollywood Unlocked ran with the headline, "Alleged messages reveal Scrappy dissed, Kirk and Rashida did Jock leak the receipts." Fans flooded Scrappy's Instagram comments with crown emojis, fire emojis, and snake emojis, all in the same thread. Some praised him for standing tall. Others accused him of being two-faced. Scrappy himself went live later that night. Sipping from a glass, his voice calm, but his eyes burning. "Look, I ain't gotta explain myself to nobody," he said, smirking at the camera. "Y'all can believe what y'all want, but I know the truth. Folks out here desperate for clout. That's all I'ma say. Keep watching, though. You'll see who really lying." The live cut off after just a few minutes, but it was enough to stir the pot. His silence on the alleged texts was all fans needed to spiral deeper. Meanwhile, Kirk and Jock stayed quiet, strategically quiet. That silence only added to the drama. Fans flooded their socials with demands. Drop the full receipts. Don't start what you can't finish. We need to see everything. Behind the scenes, whispers said Kirk was furious about the way Scrappy's comments had dragged Rashida into the mix. For Kirk, this wasn't just about respect between men anymore. It was about his marriage, his family, and his image. Jock, on the other hand, was boiling over the alleged money betrayal. To him, this wasn't just about pride. It was about business. Scrappy had crossed him in ways Jock couldn't ignore. And then came the wildest twist yet. One anonymous source claimed that the confrontation wasn't only about Rashida or money, it was about loyalty. Allegedly, Scrappy had been playing both sides in a much bigger drama, cozying up to Jock and Kirk's rivals while still pretending to be cool with them in public. A thread laid it out. Scrappy been double-dipping, telling Jock one thing, telling Kirk another, and then running back to other ATL players with dirt on both of them. When Kirk said receipts, that's what he meant. Scrap got caught moving like a double agent. That theory stuck. Fans couldn't get enough of it. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about one fight. It was about alliances crumbling, trust evaporating, and ATL's tight-knit scene on the brink of war. Clips of the fight were now being edited with dramatic captions. When you find out your bro been smiling in your face but stabbing your back, Kirk and Jock versus Scrappy. The Loyalty Wars. TikTok edits played ominous music over slowed-down footage of Kirk holding up his phone. Freezing the frame at the moment, Scrappy leaned in. Millions of views poured in. The whispers got darker, some fans claimed. Kirk had even more damaging receipts he hadn't shown yet. Screenshots linking Scrappy to someone close to Rashida. Others swore Jock was ready to expose how Scrappy had been pocketing money from joint business deals. Every new leak blurred the line between fact and rumor. But in the world of reality TV, perception was reality. And the perception was this. Scrappy was in deep trouble. Every corner of the internet buzzed with theories. Was this a personal betrayal? A business rivalry? A loyalty test that Scrappy had failed. Or was it all three at once? The only thing everyone agreed on was that the nightclub fight was no accident. It wasn't random. It wasn't heat of a moment. It was the breaking point of something that had been brewing for months, maybe even years. And the most chilling part? Nobody thought it was over. Because if Kirk and Jock had walked into that club with receipts in their pocket, what else were they sitting on? And how far would Scrappy go to prove he wasn't the villain everyone was painting him to be? The leaks had cracked the door open. What came next promised to blow it off its hinges. The fight might have started in the club. But the fallout was bigger than any velvet rope could contain. Within 24 hours, it wasn't just fans and blogs talking. It was the entire Atlanta scene. Every corner of hip-hop gossip. And even cast members of Love. And Hip Hop Atlanta, who couldn't stay silent any longer. The Shade Room's Instagram post about the fight racked up half a million likes in under a day. The comments were a battlefield. Team Scrappy versus Team Kirk and Jock. Fans wrote entire essays debating who was right, who was lying, and who was about to get exposed next. One comment summed up the frenzy. This ain't just a fight. This is ATL politics. Money, women, loyalty. It all tied together. Somebody gonna drop real receipts soon, and when they do, you. But the moment Rashida's name got pulled in deeper, the story hit another level. For years, Rashida had been the anchor in Kirk's messy public reputation for giving him through scandals, holding her ground on camera and proving her resilience. Now with the alleged leaked messages claiming Scrappy had disrespected her. Fans flooded her Instagram with comments. Sis, you gonna let Scrap talk about you like that? Protect Rashida at all costs. Kirk out here fighting over her name. That's love but messy AF. At first, Rashida stayed quiet. But then a fan posted under one of her boutique selfies. Scrappy said you the only reason. Kirk even relevant. That was the one that broke her silence. She clapped back in the comments. "'Kay, and that's why folks stay pressed. Keep my name out the clown circus." Screenshots of that reply went viral instantly. It was the first time anyone directly tied to the fight had publicly responded. And it made fans even hungrier for more. Then Erica Mena jumped in, because of course she did. Going live late at night. Sipping wine, Erica smirked at the camera like she was waiting her whole life for this moment. "Look, y'all always think you know the tea, but let me tell you something, Scrappy been messy. Real messy. Folks don't want to hear it, but he been running his mouth for a long time. Kirk and Jock. Please, they ain't saints either. This whole thing been brewing. Don't act surprised now. Don't act surprised now." Her live was clipped and reposted everywhere. Fans accused her of stirring drama just to keep herself relevant, but the damage was done. Erica had successfully dragged the conversation back into the messy LHATL universe. Next came Spice, known for being blunt and unapologetic. Spice didn't hold back when she finally addressed it during an Instagram Q&A. "Y'all want me to lie? Scrap got a big mouth. Love him, but he stayed talking slick. Kirk and Jock, them too, love to team up when they feel threatened. I ain't picking sides, but don't act like y'all ain't see this coming. ATL small, everything come back round eventually." That quote became a headline on its own. Spice says Scrappy has a big mouth. Amid a teal fight drama, even Sierra chimed in with a cryptic IG story that fans immediately connected to the drama. Loyalty ain't free. Some of y'all don't know the meaning of it. Screenshots flew across, swear with captions like, "She talking about Scrap, y'all?" No question. Sierra always got the subtweets ready. Lamo. And it wasn't just LHHATL voices. Outside celebs got pulled in too. Rappers from Atlanta dropped their takes in subtle ways. One producer tweeted, "Receipts get you pressed quicker than bullets in this city." Another posted a laughing emoji with no context, which fans immediately connected to the nightclub drama. Even outsiders like Boosie couldn't resist, posting a now-deleted tweet. "Y'all fighting in clubs like teenagers." Drop the music, not the drama. But fans weren't having it. Replies to his tweet dragged him for hypocrisy. Boozy calling somebody else messy is comedy gold. Stay out of ATL business. Big dog. Meanwhile, the fans themselves kept the fire alive. TikTok edits flooded the For You page, slowed down footage of the confrontation with ominous music. Voiceover narrations pretending to be inside sources and split-screen comparisons of all three men's reactions. One TikTok hit over 2 million views with the caption, "Scrappy standing tall while Kirk and Jock plotting receipts." Hashtag ATL club fight. Twitter Spaces popped up titled, "Scrappy versus Kirk and Jock. Who really wrong?" Hundreds of fans tuned in just to argue, dissecting every detail like it was the Zapruder film. The narrative shifted every hour. Some fans swore Scrappy was the victim, being cornered 2-on-1. Others believed Kirk and Jock had every right to press him if he was disrespecting behind the scenes. And a growing number demanded the so-called receipts Kirk had teased in the club by the end of the week. The storyline wasn't just about what happened in that nightclub. It was about what might happen next. Would Kirk drop the receipts? Would Scrappy clap back harder? Would Jock spill the business drama? Or would the entire situation explode into something bigger, dragging the whole cast into the fire? The blogs kept stirring. Hollywood Unlocked teased an exclusive interview with a close source. The Shade Room posted a poll. Whose side are you on? Team Scrappy or Team Kirk and Jock? Thousands voted, the numbers neck and neck. And somewhere in the middle of all of this, Scrappy posted one cryptic story, a black screen with 3 words, "Ain't over yet." Fans lost their minds. Oh nah. He bound to clap back hard. Kirk better be ready. Scraps sound like he got his OWN receipts. This storyline writing itself. Producers don't gotta do nothing by now. Even people who had never watched an episode of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta knew about the fight. The story jumped from urban blogs to mainstream gossip outlets. TMZ ran a segment. Podcasts debated whether this was real beef or just publicity. Commentators on YouTube broke down the timeline like it was a true crime documentary. And through it all, one truth remained clear. This wasn't over. The club fight was just the opening scene. The real war was happening online, in group chats, in private calls. In meetings, none of the fans could see yet, because if the whispers were right, both sides were sitting on nuclear bombs of information. Kirk and Jock with their receipts, Scrappy with his own side of the story, and everyone else in Atlanta waiting for the moment those bombs got dropped. The public had chosen their sides. The industry had weighed in. The castmates had thrown their shade. The stage was set. All that was left was for somebody to make the next move. And when they did, it wasn't just going to be a fight. It was going to be an explosion by the time the dust settled from the first wave of blogs, tweets, and IG lives. The nightclub confrontation had evolved into something much bigger than a few harsh words under flashing lights. For Kirk Frost, Young Jock, and Lil Scrappy, it wasn't just about bruised egos anymore. It was about survival in Atlanta's cutthroat ecosystem. Reputations, loyalty, and pride hanging on the edge of a knife down in the quiet of his home later that night. Kirk scrolled through his phone again, the glow illuminating his face. Every comment, every meme, every headline painted him as the villain, the aggressor, the one who had stormed across the dance floor with something to prove. Jock leaned back in the chair beside him, shaking his head at the feeds. "They think we pressed him just for clout," Jock muttered. "They don't know the half of it." Kirk exhaled through his nose, his voice low but deliberate. "Then maybe it's time they find out." The words hung in the air, heavier than the bass that had rattled the nightclub walls just hours before. Jock didn't respond right away, but the look in his eyes said everything. They were no longer debating if they should release the receipts. They were debating how. Meanwhile, across town, Scrappy sat with his crew, his drink untouched for once. He had replayed the confrontation in his head 100 times already. The looks in Kirk's eyes, Jock's finger jabbing his chest, the phone glowing in Kirk's hand. Scrappy had held his ground, but deep down, He knew the war wasn't over. One of his boys leaned in, whispering what everyone else was already thinking. They got something. Scrap, you better be ready. Scrappy smirked, but his voice carried steel. Let 'em try. They ain't the only ones with dirt. And that was the twist no one saw coming. Because while Kirk and Jock had built their case, compiling receipts and waiting for the perfect moment to unleash them, Scrappy had his own arsenal. Years of whispers, deals, and backroom confessions. The kind of secrets that could shatter facades and ruin legacies. The rumors started bubbling fast. A gossip page claimed Scrappy had screenshots tying Jock to a messy love triangle that fans had no idea about. Another whispered that Scrappy was sitting on financial dirt about Kirk, connected to business deals Rashida supposedly didn't even know about. Suddenly, it wasn't just about who had the receipts. It was about whose receipts would hit harder. Fans sensed it too. Twitter boiled with predictions. If Scrap drops what I think he gone drop, ATL gone burn. Kirk think he got the upper hand. He forget who Scrap been rolling with these last 10 years. We in a receipts Cold War right now. First one to fold loses everything. The tension was unbearable. And then came the whispers that production, yes, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta production had stepped in. Insiders claimed cameras were already rolling. That the confrontation and its aftermath had been caught on film. And that this was only the tip of what the next season would deliver. But the cast knew better. This wasn't just a storyline anymore. It was real. 2 real. Late-night phone calls went unanswered. Group chats turned into war zones. People who had once shared stages and studios now couldn't be in the same room. Even neutral parties were forced to choose a side. The city of Atlanta felt divided. It's like one spark could send the entire scene up in flames. And somewhere in the shadows, other names started surfacing. Names no one expected. A whispered rumor suggested Scrappy wasn't acting alone. That he had allies, powerful ones, who had their own grudges against Kirk and Jock. Another leak hinted that Rashida herself might finally speak out in full, dropping bombs that would change the way fans viewed her marriage forever. By now, the internet wasn't just waiting for answers. It was demanding blood. Kirk closed his phone and looked at Jock, his voice steady. If we drop this, there's no turning back. Jock leaned forward, eyes blazing. Good. Then let's make sure we end him before he tries to end us, across town. Scrappy stood on his balcony, phone in hand. His jaw tight as he drafted something, maybe a post, maybe a message, maybe a bombshell that could flip the narrative in seconds. He deleted it, rewrote it, deleted it again. Finally, he locked his phone and whispered to himself, "They don't know what's coming." The night was still. The city hummed. But in that silence, a storm was building. One that would drag everyone in, whether they were ready or not, because this wasn't over. Not even close. It was only just beginning. So here we are. One nightclub fight, a million rumors, and a city divided. Kirk Frost and young Jock thought they could corner Lil Scrappy with icy words and flashing receipts. But instead, they lit a fuse that's now burning across the entire ATL. Scrappy isn't backing down. Kirk and Jock aren't letting it slide. And the fans? They're split straight down the middle. Waiting for the next bomb to drop? The real question is simple. Who's telling the truth, and who's about to get exposed? Does Kirk really have those game-changing receipts? Or is Scrappy holding back the kind of dirt that could ruin both men in one swipe? And let's not forget Rashida, Erica, Spice, Sierra, and the rest of the Love and Hip Hop Atlanta crew. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that nobody in this circle stays quiet for long. Nobody in this circle stays quiet for long. What's next? Will Scrappy clap back harder than ever? Will Kirk finally risk it all and drop the full receipts? Or will Jock be the one to take the first swing, not in the club but online, where reputations either survive or collapse in seconds? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Are you Team Scrappy or Team Kirk and Jock? Who do you believe, and who's fronting for the cameras? And don't just watch the drama, stay locked in. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. Because trust me, if you thought this was wild, the next twist will shake Atlanta to its core. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of a war. And the next move, it's coming sooner than you think.